What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. Our first week at the NACL is now in the books, and it was a fun one. 10 best of ones, which again, maybe not our favorite format in terms of competitive spirit, but in terms of entertainment, hey, it was pretty good. We got some good games, some big upsets, and all in all, a good time. My name is Grapes, joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, how are you doing today?
Grapes are doing pretty well. It's my day off. We got through the work week. And we had NACL last week. And like you said, it was a fun week. I mean, I know best of ones aren't amazing, but I will say it means you get to see every team play every day, which was pretty fun, especially with how much parity we have in the league. There were some pretty good games last week.
Yeah, no, a lot of just competitive games, a lot of back and forths. You know, I think we're going to talk about some of them as we go throughout this episode. But before we do that, make sure to leave a comment about your favorite part, or if you have a question or something. We try our best to go in and respond to any of the comments of questions or things like that, or discussions about the NACL. I mean, that's literally what we're here for. So yeah, make sure to do that. Check us out on all of our social media, and we're continuing to post, continue to chug along here. Hawk, the regular season is a quarter of the way over after those 2 days. Isn't that kind of crazy? Yeah,
there's only 3 weeks left. One super week coming in. I think week 3 is the super week, if I'm not mistaken. But I know I'm trying not to think too much about the fact that we're going to have to say goodbye to 2 teams so early and just sort of enjoy watching the games as they come. In my head, I'm rationalizing all of this by just NACL is an 8-team league with 9 exhibition matches per team. Before
yeah,
it all
we get
starts.
a little. It's a little fun.
Yeah,
this is a little fun little sprinkle before the real games begin.
Yeah, we get stream scrims from all the teams, and Vancouver Impact and whoever's going to join them are there. But definitely make sure you're following us on our socials and joining the Discord, because our part 2 is going to be a little late this week. But we have a special surprise I think you all are going to enjoy quite a bit. So make sure you're staying tuned for when that episode releases, likely on Saturday instead of the Thursday that we generally strive for.
Yeah. Sometimes when an episode, we're interviewing somebody basically, and their only time was or the time that worked out best for everybody, we have to release it, after the week of games. But that's going to be okay. We're going to have our discussion about the matchups, about our teams, some roster stuff that happened as well. And then we'll be right back here next week with some more headlines and maybe some more thorough discussion. I mean, Hawk, we might have to do Salt Street Bets a little early this year because of the fact that the regular season is going to end so quick.
I have no idea how we're going to do.
It might be a next week thing. I don't know.
Yeah, either that or we do it after regular season before playoffs, and we just don't do the relegations. We'll figure it out.
There's a bridge that will be crossed at some point.
There is a bridge that will be crossed in the next couple weeks, though, to your point. We're going to have to move quickly. Regardless, let's get into the headlines. Spoiler alert, Salt Street Bets coming in headline number 5. From last split, we have yet to review that one, but we're not there yet. First, we got to overreact, Grapes.
10 best of ones means that there's a lot of opportunity to, react to the games, but also overreact to performances of the teams after just 2 games of play. 2 teams are undefeated, 2 teams are 0-2, 6 teams in the middle at 1-1. Couple of big upsets here and there. I guess we're going to get into them as we discuss this headline, Hawk, but this is just our chance, initial reactions to the games, and anything that you might have changed your mind about after watching these 2 days of best of ones.
Yeah, it's so funny because we have, in some ways a lot of data on all the teams, but also not a lot, because we've now seen every team play 2 different people, which is that's a lot of data. But then you think about the fact that it's best of ones, week 1 best of ones, and it's I still don't really know what to think about anybody. So that's why we have to overreact and choose incredibly hardline conclusions that are going to be true for the rest of the season, like how CCG is a top 3 team in the league, baby. Grapes and I both rated them top 4, but I think they beat Dark Zero in their current form. You said there was 2 upsets week. There's only 1 that mattered, and it was CCG taking down the unanimous, overwhelming favorite of Luminosity Gaming on the first day. And honestly didn't feel like Luminosity was like super asleep at the wheel. Like, yes, they should have won, but I think CCG came out. They played well. Shogo played the Yasuo with Fatachan on the Alistar, dude. Like, that was hype as fuck. And they also looked pretty good against Supernova, who looks like the best team in the league right now. And I say they would beat Dark Zero because I also felt that Dark Zero did not have the most impressive week. Really strong showing against Conviction on day one, but I think they actually struggled quite a bit against Dorado.
I mean, that game did go a while. It was a very close one overall. Yeah, I still have trouble doubting this Dark Zero Dragonsteel team. I know that I ranked them like pretty high in my power rankings.
Graves, I thought we were overreacting.
I'm not gonna let go of that one just yet. I'm gonna have our overreaction. It's just not about this.
I
one
say as Dark
yet.
Zero is one of the 2-0 teams, by the way.
Yeah, I know exactly. Like it's
But,
hard
okay.
to say. Like Dark Zero sucks after they went 0-2, or they went 2-0.
Yeah, my
compared
beef with
to
Dark Zero
CCG,
is
which did win a game. Who did lose a game.
my beef with Dark Zero is they just look like they're trying to hand check everyone, and they don't really look like they have like game plans right now. And I think part of that is like Kisno is new, K is new, Toasty is like newish. I'm sure Niles will whip him into shape. I will say, and then I'll pass the mic over to you, Grapes. Kisno had a fucking amazing weekend, so shout out to him, man.
He did. Won the MVP, or I don't even know if he won. Maybe he didn't win the MVP in game 2. Actually, low key.
Might have been Sajed on the.
It might have been. I think it was K for both of them actually. Like I'm just.
Ain't no way K deserved it for game 2, bro. What? I would hope it's Sajed on the Lucian.
He did end game 2 9-4-3. So,
he made some pretty huge blunders, but I digress. I just looks a little disjointed from the team on week 1, which is to be expected.
Fair enough. I was kind of hoping they'd be one of the better teams like right off the bat. I think that they still did okay. I do back to CCG though. I agree with you. I mean, we had this team top 4, both of us, and we were the highest out of like anybody in our community on that team. And in our community power rankings, like there were teams like Winthrop who got first place votes, which or teams like Blue Water that got first place votes, for instance. And so, definitely am happy about that. Music looked great playing with Shogo and Fadi-chan. Young looked like he didn't really miss a step either, at least throughout his first week. He
struggled against ABO a little.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, he didn't do anything like game losing, I guess, in that one. This team's going to live and die by music, as we saw in game 2 as well. My hot take, or my overreaction, is that Catavolve's actually the best mid lane prospect in North America, and he's actually the only hope for our region. 9-1-6 on the Azir against Bradley, who's another guy that we think pretty highly of on the Citadel. Hey, Conviction's gonna be a legitimate team. I know that we were maybe doubting them. Some people we had them like 9th or 8th in our power rankings, but they beat the Citadel rather handily. I think the other overreaction maybe is that Citadel like looks a little bit more on the shaky side, but it's just, again, best of ones. It's very hard to tell. The funny thing there is that actually Viper and Stunt, which were the two pieces that maybe most people were most worried about, actually ended up like really hard carrying that game against the Citadel.
Yeah, that was the other like upset. I will say like I rated those teams similar enough that I don't consider that like a huge upset. I mean, like I still think I'm like fairly surprised. Citadel still has some stuff to work out for sure. Conviction honestly maybe has more smoke than I expected. But I just have to ask, Grapes, how do you feel about Cat Evolved getting gapped by the real #1 North American mid lane prospect in Toasty Alex in the first game of the season?
Hey, that was, you'll have your ups and downs. I'm just coping right now.
Which I will say, day 2, Toasty got gapped by Shochi, so maybe Shochi's the real mid lane prospect.
Man, I still think Dark Zero is good, which is why I'm giving Conviction a bit of a pass here.
No, I know.
Also, part of the reason why I think like Dorado get a pass, for instance, like in their 0-2, because they played like pretty difficult teams in both of their games. They played Supernova and then Dark Zero. The Supernova team is legit, as you mentioned. I think having them as #1 right now, just in terms of power rankings, is not really a stretch at this point, just given how LG lost and maybe Dark Zero looked a little bit shaky. But this is the thing about the format, though, as we wrap this one up, because we can have these like fun overreactions and everything. it's so hard to tell anything about any of these teams, and just because they're best
Yeah.
of ones. Like, it's great that we saw the teams play. From an entertainment perspective, honestly, like, you can make the argument. I would not necessarily disagree with you in that this format, like, on a day of regular season play is more interesting than a day of NACL last split, just because you get to watch all the teams play. They're all best of ones, which means like more upsets happen. Like, there were a lot of instances, for example, where Pulsar like randomly won game 1 of a series, but then they ended up losing, right? But like, that is kind of the situation that we're in with the best of ones. That's why, you know, it feels like the league is at like having a bit of an identity crisis of if they are trying to be entertainment, if they are trying to be a development league, because that is not helping it in this sense. And so, all things said, hard to overreact, hard to underreact, hard to really say anything. Honestly, if you had me do the power rankings again after watching that first week of games, even though there were a couple of upsets, I don't think I would change very much.
No, I don't think I'd change very much either. Like I said, I'd probably like bump Supernova up to 1 just like right now, but like, do I think LG sucks because they lost to CCG? No, I think they're still an overwhelming favorite to be in the promotion tournament. Last thing I'll say is, we briefly touched on the Dorado thing. Like, I definitely don't think there should be a week 1 overreaction for them. They lost to the 2-2-0 teams. I think they'll be fine. Like, if they're 0-4 after this week, I'll be very concerned. I don't actually know who they play. Grapes, are you able to pull that up? Or
yes,
I can.
The next week's schedule for Dorado Gaming includes Citadel and then Vancouver Impact. So yes, if they go 0-4,
if they're 0-4, panic.
Panic button, yes.
But if they are like 1-3 or especially 2-2, like that team will clearly be fine. And honestly, they were fairly competitive against Dark Zero. Like I said, I think Shochi had a great game against Toasty. Bot lane struggled a little bit. But like I think we've seen why Dorado like will be an okay team. So I think they're fine.
Yeah, I am very curious to see what happens when the team that inevitably is going to be in 9th place after week 2, like, do they decide to like fire their coach or something? I mean, we had this discussion already, but like after like 4 best of ones, you're already in panic mode, and you kind of have to be, because your season really is on the line. It's definitely a very stressful situation that I would not want to be a part of. So
I think no one should be panicking except for Vancouver Impact, but I think they were like the expected 10th place team, so I don't think you should like panic mode make changes, because like I think they're meant to be here, and like they'll pick up a win somewhere along the line, and just keep on trucking, guys. Like it's probably gonna be a long season. It was a rough week 1 for them, though. I will be completely honest. I think Dragoon in the year of our Lord 2025. Keyshawn, what are we doing, man? Like, fucking hell.
Well, speaking of Vancouver Impact, the first game was a loss to Blue Otter, who, as we move on to our next headline, fortunately did have to make a bit of a roster change. It was announced a couple days ago that Chrome/Aaron, our boy, will have to be stepping aside for some personal reasons. That means that Array is going to be stepping in for the remainder of the split. All love to Aaron, all love to Chrome. Hope that all is well over there. Haven't gotten the chance to really see exactly what's up over there, but I guess this question, let's focus more about Blue Otter overall, because not a team that we were super high on going into the split, just because they had to make a last minute jungle change, not to make a last minute AD carry change. They did go 1-1, but it is again hard to tell, because they beat the team that many people were expecting to be 10th, and then lost to the team that many people expected to be first in Luminosity Gaming, even though they did of course drop a game earlier on. Blue Water are playing Winthrop and then Supernova this week. I guess just overall, what are your expectations, and have they changed now that this is the second roster change that they have to make in as many weeks?
I mean, it sucks for Aaron. Like, I mean, for sure, like, hearts out to him. You had the split of his career last split. Definitely hurts to see him step away. I'm hoping he's able to come back stronger in 26 if he chooses to. It's been really fun following Aaron/Chrome's career for the last 4 years now. I mean, a player we've always thought highly of, but Array coming in, I think the fortunate thing for Blue Otter is like, it's a side grade. Like, Chrome maybe had a slightly better split than Array. Last split, Array was better than Chrome for most of their careers. He started a little bit earlier, kind of got into the higher levels a little bit earlier. So I think this is about a side grade. Array, though, I will say a little bit more of a hyper carry may be beneficial for Blue Otter, who, Low Jazz is definitely not a carry. Quacker sometimes, but not a lot of the time. And so, I think like if we're looking at, having like a core of carries being Samikin and Array, like maybe slightly stronger if you're looking at somebody to 1v5, but I don't think this changes much. It just, I mean, it's mostly like Hearts out to Chrome. Welcome Array. Blue Otter will keep going.
I like the point that you brought up where maybe Array is able to play more hyper carries. I feel like there's games where Array maybe is like more on the invisible side. I feel like Chrome always has like an impact kind of whenever he's playing, especially like last split on Conviction.
Array doesn't really play utility champions, I feel like, a lot of the time.
But yes, Array will have the 1v9s. Like he'll lock the like I feel like in terms of like Jinx, for example, like or Felios or some of these like big 1v9 hyper carries, like I feel like Array's maybe more that style. I feel like Aaron maybe like I don't know, for him like I'm thinking like Jin almost.
Yeah.
Like, it's like
he's got
that he played the most
like,
last split.
Chrome can do it. Like he has a great Jinx, but yeah, I mean you mentioned champions like the Aphelios, the Ezreal that we've seen Array do gross things on, like Callista. I don't feel like those are as much in Chrome's wheelhouse, to your point. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is interesting because we were just talking about, our team's going to hit the panic button, make a lot of roster changes. Technically, Blue Water is 40% different than what they initially announced, but that's not necessarily the same thing because kind of it seems like both of those choices were out of their control in some way, shape, or form. However, I am still hopeful about this Blue Water team. I think, expectations probably about the same. Like if they make it to playoffs, it'd be like a big win for them. If they are ninth, I don't think they're gonna have too hard of a time in the promotion tournament, depending on who they will be playing against. I still think this is like a solid roster, and if we think that they are not gonna be that solid, it just is gonna come down to the fact, or if they are lower in the standings, it's just gonna come down to the fact that there's a lot of parity in the league right now.
Exactly. I don't think any Blue Otter performance should be blamed for roster changes, nor should their successes. Like, I just think it should be credited towards, like, the players and either the growth that they show or, like, just how good the rest of the league is. I still think this is a good team. I still think this is an NACL team. I still think this is a team that, like, is hoping to make playoffs and, like, probably won't do too much there, but that's okay. And that's just generally my expectation for this team.
All you got to do is make playoffs, as we saw from Blue Otter about a year ago to the day.
This is very true.
So there is still definitely opportunities here for our boys in blue, I guess, but in the right kind, in a different kind of way.
All right, let's move on to headline number 3 before Grapes gets its canceled. As we have a couple of really huge matches coming up in week 2. We've already mentioned some of those sort of like, maybe welterweight sort of matchups, but Luminosity Gaming, very similar to last split, Grapes, in their second and third. Well, last split was their second and third matches. This split is their third and fourth. They are playing the other 2 best teams in the league, as they have Supernova and Dark Zero on the chopping block for this coming week. The question I pose to you is, if we're kind of doing week 1 overreactions, is Luminosity still the favorite? This and that. Do they go 0-2, 1-1, or 2-0?
1-1. 1-1. I'll say maybe I'll say they go 1-1, but they lose to Dark Zero. Let's say that. Little revenge for finals. I feel like there's always a little bit of extra vindication for the team that like loses in the finals when the split starts up again. Like I feel like a lot of the time, like in the regular season, like when they rematch like FlyQuest versus Team Liquid after like I feel like generally I'm always favoring, or I feel like this is like purely like zero math behind any of this, but I always feel like the winning team like has a little bit of or the team that lost original in the finals.
No, I know
has
what you
a little
mean.
bit of extra juice.
It's like
going into the start of the split.
It's like how
especially because the best of one.
Yeah, it's like if Fnatic always beats G2 in like the opening day of the season and then fucking loses them in playoffs. Yes.
No, exactly. That is exactly what I'm talking about here.
No, I know what you mean.
Like, honestly, is this Dark Zero Dragonsteel team better than the one that lost to LG in finals? Like, does Shimmer compared to Kizno, but then K compared to, Zamudo and then Spyrex, like, is it similar? I would say probably similar in terms of like actual like talent levels maybe, but then when it comes down to the fact that these guys have been playing together for a little bit longer, they didn't have to like scramble to, and they also weren't just coming off of a CLO loss, or a CLO win I should say, where they were really like focusing on that. I'll say Dark Zero beats LG, but then I'll say that LG beats Supernova because I still think that they are consensus definitely top 2 or 3 and will be able to contest against both of them.
You bring up a really interesting question because I felt like the big difference maker for Luminosity down the stretch of the season was their mid jungle, Tomio against Shimmer, but then also Insanity became, he became the player he was meant to be sort of in the back half of that playoffs, winners finals into grand finals. And, I felt like he really gapped Spyrax in especially the grand finals. And I think that was more of a testament to how well Insanity played. But now we get Toasty. And have we ever seen Toasty play Insanity? That's a legitimate question. I don't think we have.
I have no idea.
Because Toasty's first year in the NACL, Insanity was in LTA, if I'm not mistaken. And then we never got to see Toasty play Luminosity in the NACL last split. So this might be the first meeting of the two. So I think this is going to be like super interesting to watch.
Did 100 Thieves Next play like Wildcard Aces in 2023 or 2022, whatever?
Toasty wasn't even there in 22, was he? Oh wait, no, he was. You're right. He was on that fucking like Team Fish Taco team or some shit.
No, he was on Wildcard Aces with Jeremy and Pocus, I think.
Right.
And Rapid and
Blossoms.
I think Samudo actually hopped on there for a second too at the end of the split, but I don't know if they played 100 Next, and so I'm not. I don't. That's like the only hope I think in terms of.
I don't think these two players have ever met. So this is like a really interesting matchup for me. I'll just say I think Supernova beats Luminosity. I've already said like I think they looked the best, like in week 1 out of any of the teams. They just look really good. I will say Hoarder against Fate God, like must watch League of Legends. We've obviously already seen them play, but I feel like, Hoarder kind of, with the new team, going to be super fun.
Hoarder played great last week.
Yeah, he did. Fuck it. Give me 0-2. Dark Zero wins. Toasty Alex finds the advantage over Insanity, and I already think Kizno has been playing like the best jungler in the league. So
damn.
Fuck it,
Deus,
dude.
Deus is going to be in your mentions.
I'm sure he will be. Shout out to Deus, actually, who in the Salty Runback Discord, like, kind of talked about with some people about, like, the week 1 and, like, the loss and the win and, like, what the team's, like, doing right now. Like, he was being very transparent with, like, the community, which I thought was super cool. So, shout out to Deus. But I'm sorry, I'm going 0-2
your team's gonna
on my prediction.
go 0-2.
But also, I predicted against Luminosity a lot last split, and they fucking won everything. So maybe when I just predict against people, they get stronger.
That's a little bit of a teaser for later in the episode, I think. But
fuck off.
Man, format, I would have loved to see best of series.
Yeah. I mean, like, we'll probably see these teams play against each other again, but I agree. It sucks that, like, we only get one game now.
But that's the thing as well, is that, the last season, we saw at least the best of between LG and Dark Zero, like, at the start of the split. And even though it was a while until we saw them match up against each other again, it was at least, like, a best of 3 that we got to base it off of. Now it's like, only best of 1. I apologize. Yeah. I promise that's the last time I will complain about the format.
Normally, I'm the complainer. What's happening right now?
I'm just so mad that I feel like I can't like have any definitive takes after watching this week. Like, yeah, it was fun, but do I know anything less or more? Like, I'm not really. So
I feel like NACL just needs to, League Esports in general just needs to get comfortable with playing multiple games at the same time, and then having only one stream that, or like, you stream all of them, but then one central stream in which you like.
Yeah,
I'm about to pitch tier 3 tonight.
That would also get some criticism, I'm sure. Just like the OQs, got some heat when that happened.
I think if they were actually properly covered across all the matches, and by properly covered, I don't mean like you need to have a full live stream of every single one, but like if like the central stream still properly covered all the games while actually streaming the marquee matchup, I think fans would be okay with that. Let us know in the comments or in our Discord what you think on that conversation, because this is something Grapes and I have talked about a lot behind the scenes. But I digress.
I think for OQ, I mean, it just means that like you're taking another level, and then like all of a sudden like you're
like, think about it, just two best of 3s at the same time instead of just one.
I mean,
you stream them both. One of them's just like a basic ass, like you turn on the stream, people are commentating it, but then the other one is like a full like coverage.
You fail to realize, though, Hawk, is that we did that like 3 years ago, and they've made it different now. That was perfect back when they did it.
I know,
but it was too expensive, and that's why we're here. Like I don't know. Like you're just pitching like the dream the dream scenario where everyone can do anything. Where like the thing that we all want, but like and used to have, is not. I just feel like I don't know how.
There's a way to
realistic
do it
anymore.
if people were willing to be imaginative. I would have to think. Maybe it's not exactly what I'm imagining now because you're right. There are like limitations to things, but I think there is a way that I guarantee you there's a way that something along what I'm talking about could be done if someone was willing to do it and put in the work. But
Yeah,
I digress.
That's another conversation. And we'll talk about format and all that more. We didn't want this to be a format episode, and it's evolved into that. So we'll move on to another format.
That was a
another
good side
tournament.
tangent. That was a good.
Yeah.
I'm actually really curious for everyone, all the fans, to like let me know what they think. I'm like, would you prefer a better format, but not necessarily all the games being like 100% streamed? Let us know.
Or maybe like community streams, but then I don't know. Like we've tried a lot of iterations.
We've tried a lot of iterations
over the last few years, right? We've had NACL and Path to LCS. We've had like Academy Rush back in 2020. We had the OQs, which like nothing is streamed. And I feel like there's always something to complain about. There's no really perfect solution, unfortunately.
There's definitely not.
At the end of the day, though, again, the NACL or like just this area kind of has to just figure out what it is, because right now, as you know, Kelsey mentioned last week and we talked about it, it's not a developmental league and it's not necessarily like the prime, like it's not the best suited for entertainment either. So it's kind of in this weird
it's
middle
not
ground
an
where
entertainment
it's
product. Yeah.
nothing. Yeah. All that to say, Luminosity is going to go 1-1 this week was the actual answer.
Oh, two, baby. But let's
move
talk
on.
more about format. Yeah. However,
Well,
kind of as you're talking about, you know, Tier 2 doesn't really have a sole identity yet. So let's just get more games somewhere else. Shout out to Aegis.
Let's talk about Aegis then, because they announced their format kind of a few minutes after this recording, after we started recording, actually. Shout out to Duan, who is like the lead TO, like the LOL director over there, who announced the new format for this league. 24 teams instead of 32 last time around. And just like last split, not necessarily a group stage into playoff format, a lot of actually GSL. So the way that the regular season is going to work is there's gonna be two different sets of GSL groups. One to like kind of separate the teams. I guess the best way to explain this is that teams are going to be split into groups of 6 that each play GSL style double elimination brackets. The top 2 teams get a bye immediately, and then the other 4 like kind of go through this like mini GSL, basically to seed them into top like 1 through 6 essentially. After that, the 1 seeds all play each other for seeding. The 2 seeds all play each other for seeding. The top 2 finishers of these GSL groups automatically qualify for playoffs, and their next 2 weeks of games are just for seeding. And then all the other teams, which are 16, are going to fight in individual GSL brackets for the final 8 seeds in the playoffs, which eventually turn into a full double elimination bracket, 16 teams. Start of it's best of 3, end of it is best of 5. We'll get the chance for you to talk about the format, but this also relates back to the fact that, you know, when we talked about, every NACL team should be competing in this because now the new format allows for that, there was some pushback about the format, and it is 2 best of 3s a week. And it later came out because of Duan and Ivar and some other of the Aegis staff that the reason that this happened to be the case is that they had to complete ACL in 8 weeks instead of, like the typical 12 to 14, which is why they had to make every single week 2 best of 3s. Is that level of increase in games, increase in tape hawk worth it for these teams, or worth it in general for ACL if it means that maybe you're getting less scrim time and things like that?
I don't think less scrim time matters too much because you're getting more best of 3 stage games. So I don't think that's it. But I mean, it is a pretty hefty time commitment though. Like if you're an NACL team, that's 4 days a week that you are committed to playing games, which like that's a lot because a lot of players definitely need to have time for other things because most people are not full-time gamers anymore. And like you say, I mean, scrims are still important. Like you still want to be able to scrim like behind closed doors, try different stuff, all that, work on things specifically. But a lot of information. So just to kind of recap, 24 teams, 3 stages. First stage puts 8 teams in playoffs. and they become the top 8 seeds. The second stage eliminates 8 teams, and then the third stage is a 16-team double elim bracket. And we have on good authority that they also consulted the Twitter Rizzler, Tim Dakar Bui, for the format here. So Aegis really knowing where to go for good format advice. Shout out Tim. Also shout out Duan and everyone at Aegis. But yeah, I think it's an interesting format. It's like inefficient in the sense of like the first like 6 weeks of games or something, or like 4-5 weeks of games is like you're only eliminating 8 teams. But it gives everyone a lot of games against strong competition. I will say the best, like the top teams are going to get a lot of games against like the other top teams. Whereas there's going to be like a lot more mid-table matches as well, kind of in that second stage. So that's just something to consider. I think it's probably better that they did it 2 matches a week as opposed to 1 though. If like it is what provides a format like this, because otherwise it probably would have just been like a tournament bracket, and I don't know, it's like not as interesting. And like, I mean, I think back to OQs, and that was like 2 matches a week for a lot of teams. Like or like some of the weeks it was 2 matches a week, right? So like the teams will be fine. They'll get through it, you know.
8 weeks is definitely a short amount of time to conduct a regular season and a postseason. That seems to be the similar amount of time that the NACL has kind of been constrained into as well, which I think goes back to the fact that it is tough to...
But they're not doing a regular season, and I like that.
Yeah.
It's like a staged tournament. That's cooler.
Yeah. No, it is cool. However, the fact that, you know, you mentioned the inefficiency, that is taking the place of a regular season in a way.
Yes.
So if you're talking about like, why are we playing these games? We just start the bracket earlier. It's the fact that instead of regular season, you're getting these games, which is, I think, part of their argument. There probably is some middle ground that, you know, the way ACL worked in the spring split, for example, is that it was 1 best of 3 a week for a good chunk of time, and then once they got to the playoffs in the later half of the season, it started to become 2 best of 3s a week. And maybe that's a better way to like help ease teams into it a little bit. Maybe as you get later into the season, you're going to be able to commit more time, and at the start, maybe you have other things you have to focus on. The scrim thing that you bring up is interesting because you mentioned like, oh, this can just take the place of
not entirely. Like you do still need scrim time, but I don't think you're sad if you lose like 1 of your scrim days for Aegis or something. If you have multiple.
The other argument is that some teams do like 5 blocks, and then you get a max of 3 games here, and then you don't want to like book a scrim before or after like your Aegis game because you like really want to focus on that.
That's fair.
So maybe like there's less time. My argument against that would be like playing competitive like matches that maybe have less impact than your actual like NACL placing is more beneficial like usage of your time than like 5 scrim games would be my argument. But like I'm not a team owner. I've not really been in these meeting rooms or anything like that. I do like the fact that, you know, there is going to be a lot of parity every week in all the games that are played because of this new format, and I think that helps the case of like, oh, this is bad because we're just going to like play a random regular season game instead of getting a scrim day. Most of your games in Aegis are going to be against like similarly skilled opponents, which is good.
Yeah, I agree. I think this format's cool. Like I said, it's a tiered out tournament. You know, it feels like everyone's kind of flowing towards something, but you still get a lot of games no matter what to kind of get that practice time, to get that competitive experience. And I think team owners and pundits and just like everyone in the North American space, like a lot of times when people blame, like this is going like way beyond the skill level of Aegis, but like, you know, when people talk about like North America and the West struggling at internationals, like I know one of the things that went viral is that BLG is playing like 10 scrims a day or something like that. I think people overrate the pure number of games that people are playing like quite a bit. The number of games matters way less than the quality of them and like what you're actually gleaning from them. And I think especially like when we come back down now to like this Aegis level of like mid to low level NACL plus like tier 3, I don't think you need to play 20 games a week. You know, if Aegis means you're playing 12 games a week, but you're getting high quality stage games that you can really, you know, VOD review, learn from as a team. Like, I think it's gonna be way more valuable to the development of players at this level anyway than just like fucking grinding scrims. Yes, you do still need some scrims to practice like like tech, you know what I mean? But to actually like learn from the live game, and I think there's value in that. So I think it's fine, and I mean, I think like the benefit of getting a cool tournament format like this dramatically outweighs the cons.
I agree, 100%. I've on good authority that there are multiple NACL teams that are playing in this. I don't necessarily know who exactly, but I think it's around half, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. We'll know sooner than you guys, though, because I think both of us are on the seating committee for ACL. And
some would say we know ball. Some would say we
we
don't know ball, but some would say we do.
We know enough ball to at least make it into the committee, I guess.
We know more ball than probably most people.
I don't know when the official date is for that, but I think I think the season starts in the next week or two. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I'm excited to see the rosters that are not NACL teams as well, because it's not just the teams that are out to play. Individual players are allowed to play too. So say, for instance, like Supernova is not competing in ACL, but Hoarder still wants to join a team. Like, that is still definitely possible. And I'm very curious to see like what that ends up looking like. So all that being said, make sure you support Aegis. We'll be continuing to follow it throughout the season. But before we wrap up the show, Hawk, it's time to do a little bit of a review of our Salt Street bets from last split. Now, remember, we did things a little bit differently last time around. Because there were no OQs to talk about, we did a CLOL headline, an NACL investment portfolio, a CLOL portfolio where we picked 3 teams to go in the tournament because we were halfway through that, and then 2 individual prop bets. We'll start off with Hawk, and then we'll go over to mine, and we'll compare to see how well we did.
Yeah, I've been dreading this point in the episode, the entire recording. A respectable $1,700, $1,800, $1,750 for me. I made money. I think I've lost money on Salt Street bets once, which is the only time that's happened, I want to say. So at least I didn't do that again. There is a very notable goose egg in my portfolio.
Yeah.
And it comes in the trail of bodies that the University of Health Sciences and Pharmaceuticals left behind in CLOL, as ISU and UTM did not win any games because they ran into the U Tactics, and Grandview got upset by Weber State. So not a good look for me. Yeah, that was tough. I did hit one of my prop bets, though, which was that Maryville would not win both CLOL and the NACL, which was true. Thank you, Luminosity, I say with a fat asterisk next to it. And then I got $1,000. I doubled my money on Dark Zero. They came in first, which was a doubling of the money, but they did not come 2 or more places higher or lower, so I did not double or lose. So for them being runners up, I got a cool $1,000. That's where my $1,750 all comes from, including also the 200 and the 300 that I pushed on Winthrop and Blue Otter, who finished right about where they started.
Yeah. You shorted Winthrop and they ended up finishing at 1 slot higher. So you thought maybe they were going to get relegated. They actually ended up doing better. So, hey, shout out to Winthrop for that.
They locked the fuck in. I really didn't think they had it in them. So it was really impressive.
Yeah. I think overall, let's say you invested like $100 into the CLOL teams each. So in total, you invested like $1,500 into this portfolio. In real life, ending with $1,750 after like 2 months, 3 months, like that's a win.
Yeah,
like,
after completely whiffing on one of my parlays, not bad.
No, exactly. Like, you made yourself a profit still. That should be respected. However, not necessarily as much for profit as what I had here. Let's take a look at what I invested in as well.
I said thank you, Luminosity, with an asterisk. Grapes, why don't you explain to the people what that number in the bottom left stands for?
Yeah, so the 3 teams I invested in were Luminosity Gaming, Supernova, and Pulstar. Supernova ended up pushing. They were in 9th. They ended up to 8th. That doesn't get me anything or lose me anything. Luminosity, however, both finished 2 places higher, which gives me a ×2 on my $400, turning that to 8. And they also won the split, which gives me an extra 3 times multiplier, which means I effectively sextuple the $400 I initially put into LG, giving myself $2,400, which, by the way, already is more than what Hawk won in his entirety of his portfolio. Also put $400 into Pulse. They ended up relegating. That was a ×3 multiplier for me. It was funny because we initially, coming into this, said, okay, we're each going to get 1. you get Luminosity, or sorry, you get Dark Zero, I get Pulsar. But it actually ended up I got both the winner and a team that got relegated, which was a pretty big dub, I would say, on my end.
So looking at it, if Luminosity had finished second, you would have gotten $800 from that bet. And if Dark Zero had finished first, I would have gotten $1,500. So what? I would have had $1,100 more than you. Instead, you have $1,400 more than me. So that was a $2,500 swing. That grand finals win for. Am I doing my math right? Yeah. For Luminosity over Dark Zero. So
it's something like that.
That was like that was literally the difference in Salt Street Bets. Is like, thank you Luminosity for the prop bet, but that ended up really being my downfall. As I mean that was the huge boon in your portfolio, like you said, more than I already had. But you did do well elsewhere. Like the Pulse one, I should have put in green instead of yellow. 1.2 thousand, easy money for you right there. But you also made money off of CLOL when I did not.
Yeah, you went for like the high upside CLOL teams.
I went
that, like,
spicy.
You thought we're gonna go on a lower bracket run, like for the Aegis. You just picked the wrong team to go on the lower bracket run for the Aegis, because if you picked UHSP or Weber or like Winthrop instead of the teams that you did pick, which to be fair, like we were both very high on all three of the teams that you ended up picking: ISU, Grandview, UTM. Like we thought they were gonna do pretty good.
I don't really want to talk about it.
You were hoping for the seeding upsets. I think I went a little bit more chalk here. What actually is funny is Maryville still just helped you out, but also maybe helped me out even more, because I won like $500 or $600 off of this version of things here. And then my prop bets both didn't hit. Anivia top did not get locked in. We did get another Anivia. It was by Pobelter, if you guys remember, near airport against Winthrop. And there was a lot of controversy about that. And then Fadichan did not get a pentakill in CLOL. So total 4,900. I'm still pretty happy about that. And
Fadichan did not get a pentakill in CLOL against UTM, which was one of our stipulations, because they didn't play each other.
Yep. Try to predict it.
But yeah, no, Maryville didn't really help me in CLOL at all, because I didn't have any money on them in CLOL. Them winning was just worse for me straight up, because they were 700 of your 1,100 here. They had 4 wins, as well as coming in first place was a flat $300. And then, obviously, like if they had won an NACL but then lost in CLOL, I would have still hit my prop bet, but then we would have had that huge money swing that we talked about. So, yeah, I guess I should have gone whole hog and like believing in Maryville Dark Zero, or not. But as we have established relatively frequently at this point, Grapes is now 4-1 in Salt Street Bets. I think I might just suck at this.
Hey, well, as we mentioned, you might have another chance like relatively soon.
Yes.
We're going to have to get a move on with that one as we continue throughout the season.
Man, I always try to get too spicy with it. I always try to like believe in the boys instead of just like doing who I think is going to win.
I feel like sometimes though, like it works. Like the one time you won, like everything like like a ton of money, and it just everything like hit. So I can't necessarily blame you for that, right?
Grapes is just a smarter investor than me. This is why I don't gamble. Because I like want to believe in the sauce. If the fans back home haven't learned by now, a lot of my like opinions on the show are just like, but what if they did? It's fun. Yeah. It's fun that way,
Fair enough. Yeah, I've been having a good time, so I'm ready for this next week of games to begin. I'm ready to do Salt Street Bets. I'm taking a look at the teams and the games they play, strength of schedules, all that stuff. And yeah, we'll see what exactly our plans are for the next couple of weeks. Again, part 2 or our second episode this week will be coming out. I think Saturday is probably our target for that. So after this second week of games, but then we'll be right back at it with headlines probably on the Tuesday after, something like that. We're going to try to keep it to that twice a week kind of schedule, that cadence, but maybe sometimes things get delayed or pushed in and out depending on our availability throughout this split. So make sure to stay tuned to all of our socials and just to subscribe and turn on those noties and everything so you know exactly when everything gets posted and released.
Yeah, we'll still be talking NACL, Aegis, and, well, anything else as it comes up. Speaking of talking NACL, make sure you tune in this Thursday, because my pretty face will be there. So you should watch. It's going to be a fun day of games. I really am, I will say, like, back to the format one last time. I am excited that I get to cast all 10 teams on the day. it does create for like fun and dynamic days of games, especially if you can only tune in, you know, for like part of the time or whatever. But regardless of all that, that's going to do it for us here today. Bit of a quicker one for you all. Not a super heavy news week, but still some good stuff to talk about. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media, as Grapes already said, at @SaltyRunbackNA, at Hawkcast, at SpeedyGrapes. Join our Discord. And if you think that I'm bad at predicting, you should take what I said with a grain of salt. I've been Hawk, that's been Grapes. Have a good one, y'all.